Welcome to the free coaching session with Paul Hoyt and Jared Levinson. Today, you can ask all your questions, and Paul is going to get us started with some stories and tell us about what we're going to be learning about today. If you want to interject at any point, go ahead and ask your questions. We also have a free quiz on the ProStar Performance website. You can check that out. Free emotional intelligence quiz. Paul, what's going on, man?
Hey, everybody. Jared, it's always good to talk to you on these Friday Zoomcasts. I really do enjoy them. And this week, we are going to talk about personal freedom and independence because this was 4th of July week, and I think people are kind of thinking about freedom and independence a little bit and how that relates to business and how that relates to personal growth. But we do welcome all manner of other questions about business growth or personal growth. Yeah, we here at ProStar Performance are about providing emotional intelligence training, business ethics training, and company culture development. Here primarily in the Bay Area of California, but we can also work nationwide. So we're really interested in talking about all manner of different topics related to both business and personal growth. As we talked about earlier, we're going to talk about freedom and independence and kind of a dialogue between Jared and I. So Jared, what's freedom mean to you, buddy?
That's
a surprise question.
Surprise question. Well, I think what comes up is that whole quote: "With greater freedom comes greater responsibility." I know freedom is this like good sounding word, but when I first heard you say freedom, I thought, wow, like with great freedom comes great responsibility and a lot of choice, a lot of the weight of a decision. So I actually that's what came up for me. It was kind of like, a little bit of, holding my breath and kind of, oh my God, I'm free. Like, now what?
Yeah, that's a really good response to that. I like that because that's exactly right. At the one end of this entire debate is this free will versus destiny debate. We'll have lots of people that say, hey, free will is an illusion, that we're really just along for the ride, that our job here is to watch life unfold, which is a very interesting perspective, and I like that perspective periodically. But it's also very counterproductive when it comes to dealing with things on the physical plane. Because here on the physical plane, we do have choices to make. When do we get up? What do we eat for lunch? What are we going to put on today? Are we going to do our exercises? Are we going to focus on building habits? Are we going to treat other people nicely? And how are we going to treat ourselves? I think it's very useful for us to think about we do have free will and we do have choice. Then the question is, how much free will do we have? How independent of other people and other situations are we, and how much freedom do we have? When we start out as little tiny infants, we're not very free at all, and we're certainly not independent at all. We as a human species, it's tough to think about kids surviving on their own until they get like 8, 10, 12 years old. I can't imagine dropping a toddler off in the forest and expecting them to survive very long at all, until they get a little strength behind them and a little bit of cleverness. And, we're very dependent upon our families, upon our parents for giving us food and shelter, for teaching us the skills that we need to survive. So over time, we've all been on this journey from total dependence into hopefully a journey into total independence of other people and having the freedom to make a lot of choices in our life. So I focus a lot on independence. I think it is a great, great personal mindset to believe that I am free to make choices on my own, and believe that I am free to make changes in my life and my perspective, to change one belief set for another belief set, to change one set of habits for another set of habits. That freedom is very, very empowering. And one of the things that I focus on a lot is independence. Independence on two different levels. One of them is independence in terms of being independent from other people. We start out being totally dependent on other people, and gradually over time, we claim more and more and more independence. And I think the ideal way to live life is that we're carrying around our own sunshine with us. That we have a portal in our souls open to love and light and power and joy and all kinds of wisdom that can come through us. And that portal is always open, that we are independent of the energy that we see that other people have. If it's toxic energy, if it's harmful energy in some way, somebody's putting us down, telling us we ought to be serious, telling us we ought to be angry, telling us we ought to be sad, we ought to be frightened, that we can live our life totally independent of those outside influences. A lot of gurus and masters, will say that we want to develop ourselves to where we're independent of our bodies, that cold and hunger and thirst become things that are just, mildly interesting, but really our disposition, our state of mind, our mindset is totally independent of anybody else and anything else. Well, I find that kind of hard to do. And as I get stronger, as this journey continues, I become more and more and more independent, but I still am very susceptible to, the toxic energy, the emotional influence of other people. When I'm around somebody who's angry, I get this little buzz. When I'm around somebody who's upset, I have a tendency to go there just a little bit. But over time, I've become largely independent of outside situations and other people. So how about you, Jared? Do you find yourself, independent of what's going on? Do you find yourself always in this incredible state of love and light and joy, no matter what the heck is going on?
No. I don't know. There's some mixture of freedom in there. There's some dependence too that I wish wasn't there, but if I'm being honest, that is there.
Yeah.
There's actually probably a lot more dependence than I'd like to admit, but yeah, no, there's a lot of dependence in there. So yeah, I'm actually not sure like how much freedom I do have, which is kind of interesting.
So that is interesting. So you're a very young man, especially compared to me. But, over a period of time, what we see is our baseline anxiety lessens, our personal power grows, and our ability to withstand the onslaught of circumstances, the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, becomes better and better and better. We become stronger and stronger and more independent. I want to give the people who are listening here 3 different techniques that they may be able to use to really kind of increase their own sense of personal independence. These are ways of dealing with crap that comes your way. Somebody that says something that is hurtful, somebody who for whatever reason wants you to feel bad, wants you to be angry, wants you to be frightened, wants you to feel worthless in some way. And those 3 ways are, well, the first one is putting up a barrier or putting up a shield. Some people, it's like I imagine myself to be inside this bubble, this huge plexiglass bubble that is bulletproof and impervious. So no matter what you're feeling or thinking, that does not get inside my personal space because I have put up my shields. And it's just going to bounce off completely. It's not going to bother me a twit. You go do your thing. I'll just be inside my little cocoon here, inside my force field, inside my bubble. And whatever you do is your business. I'll observe it and watch it and respond to it, but I'm not going to feel frightened by it at all because I am shielded. And there's a lot of different ways to envision that, but with practice, you can put up your shields very quickly. You can just kind of go like this, put up your cross, you do whatever you can, to put up your shields and step back and realize that you have the power to step back away from that negative influence. That's technique number 1. Technique number 2 says that that's coming into me, but it's bouncing off to me. There's an old phrase, I can't remember it. Whatever you do to me bounces off of me and goes back to you. I think there's a rhyme on that, but I can't remember it. What is it? I am rubber and something. Anyway,
I'm rubber and you are glue. Whatever I say sticks, bounces off
It
of me.
bounces off of me and sticks to you. Yeah, yeah, that one, that one. Um, I think that's, I don't know about the sticking to you part of it, but the bouncing off of me is an acknowledgement that, hey, I felt that. I felt that a little bit. There was a little bit of an emotional wound there or emotional response. You pushed on me a little bit. It was like you poked me in the chest or you punched me in the shoulder or something like that. Hey, I felt it, but hey, it just bounced off me. There was no permanent damage there at all. It bounces off of me and it goes back and yep, I feel them, but sticks and stones will break my bones, but words will never hurt me. But I do feel them. So there's an acknowledgement of that. Hey, I felt that. Hey, that kind of bugs me, but hey, it's bouncing right off of me. My skin, my emotional body here is very, very elastic, and it's just going to bounce off and not hurt me at all. So that can be a useful way of dealing with that toxic energy that comes our way too. And maybe a little more realistic for some people. For some people who say, it's not realistic for me to think I got a shield up or a force field because, man, I felt that. I felt that. Wow. The third way, and which is one way that's my favorite one, is imagine that I am an ethereal being. Or my favorite is I am a huge redwood tree. I am 200 feet tall. I have roots that go down dozens of feet. And I've been here for 2,000 years, and nothing you can say or do is going to blow me over.
That's powerful.
I feel that. I feel your energy coming to me like the wind is rustling the leaves on my tree. And every once in a while, a branch breaks off or a leaf breaks off, but there is nothing you can do or say that's going to uproot me, that's going to take me away from this foundation that I have in my own self-worth. And this foundation that I have, this root system that is tied, to this earth. So it's what you will. I'll feel it. You might cause me just a little bit of damage, but, I am this huge, huge, monstrous tree with a trunk that's 14 feet or 15 feet or 30 feet in diameter. And there's nothing that you say or do that's really going to disturb my foundation. So that, I think, are three different techniques that I invite people to try on for size. To try it on for size and see whether or not, hey, I'm walking into a situation to where I'm just going to put up my shields and let everything totally bounce off the shield and I'm never even going to feel it. Or I'm going to walk into a situation or I just experienced something by surprise and it's bouncing off me. Or, wow, I felt that come at me, but, that rustled my leaves a little bit, but I'm focusing on my foundation, and my foundation is incredibly strong. That foundation of this sense of self-worth and this sense of self-confidence and this certainty about the power that I have to survive and thrive and bring value to other people. So what do you think about that? What do you think about those three techniques, Jared?
I like the red one, man. It makes it seem like everything is put in perspective where, like this little thing that's bothering me is now, it's now little. It's now something that's very small. I was actually imagining negative self-talk. There's been a lot of kind of negative self-talk in my head sometimes about failure, thoughts of failure, things like that. And, now I can see sort of like a thought of failure. It's like a little mosquito.
Yeah.
On a big redwood tree. And that's useful. I think the hard part is, this is just the whole, it's so now I have to think about being a redwood tree. I have to imagine myself. And it's dang, I wish I didn't have to think about being a redwood tree. I wish I was just I could be super lazy and not have these thoughts bother me and things like that. But that's kind of the lazy side of me thinking, oh man, this takes work to actually not that much work, but it takes a little bit of work to bat away these mosquitoes. And I'm just I don't want to do any work at all. But that's my lazy side.
Well, I think that's the ideal, right? We want to get to the point to where, there are no mosquitoes, that we never see anything that we used to think was a mosquito as a mosquito. I oftentimes say that, it is the fear that we experience that causes us to have that kind of negative reaction, that causes us to feel a little shadow energy. If a little 1.5-year-old or 2-year-old toddler came up and whacked you on the leg and said, "You're a bad man," would that bother you? Would you feel like you were threatened in some way? Or no, it's like, no, this is just a little kid. I mean, it's like kind of a joke. What, are you kidding? I admire your spunk, little kid, but you can't hurt me. When we imagine ourselves to be a 200-foot tall redwood tree with a 15-foot in diameter trunk, everybody becomes that little 2-year-old toddler that really can't bother us. And they might do a little bit of something, rustle a leaf on a tree or something, but they're not going to disturb us at our core. By the way, I really like what you said about sometimes that toxic energy doesn't come from the outside. Sometimes it comes from the inside.
Yeah.
Sometimes it comes from a train of thought that we went down, or, and here's a moment of fear and discouragement and doubt. And here's a moment of shame, embarrassment, and guilt. Here are some other things that I'm feeling that don't seem to be triggered by outside influences, but just rather a place that I went, thoughts that I was thinking for a few minutes. So we treat those the same way. We treat those as, I am myself at my core. I'm independent of the thoughts. There's really at least two me's. There's the physical self, there's the emotional self, there's the mental self, and there's the spiritual self. And this spiritual self, that's the redwood tree. That's the part that's totally independent of and totally kind of impervious of anything that happens in my mind, in the outside world, in my emotional body. That's where my awareness lies. That's where my strength lies. So, those thoughts, those emotions, they're not really who you are at your essence. Who you are at your essence is this spiritual self, this incredibly powerful, open to love and light and guidance and strength spiritual self that is independent of the fearful self, of the emotional self, of the physical self even. So
sometimes I think I've heard that a lot and I believe it, but then sometimes I'm like, it sounds, what's it called? Like it sounds like kind of like a old worn shoe. Like, oh, this shoe was so cool in the beginning. And then I hear all these teachings and I'm like, okay, yes. And then as I get into it, kind of I hear about this glorious self and I'm like, well, I've heard that 1,000 times before, but here I am still basically the same.
Well, let's say basically
a little better.
Well,
a little better. Yeah.
We talked about this in previous episodes, but that's my experience of life. You have these ups and downs, and your progression towards being an enlightened, conscious, awakened being is like filling up a swimming pool with an eyedropper.
Yeah.
Every time you choose to shift your energy, you add a little bit to the well, to the swimming pool, to where it be gradually over time it begins to be filled up, and your average vibration raises significantly over a period of time. I've seen you do that over the last year. I know personally mine's done it a lot over the last 10 years, even over the last year. I'm a better, stronger, wiser, kinder, happier person today than I was a year ago. And when I look forward into the future, I know the same will be true for the future Paul, for the future self, that I will be stronger, happier, wiser, kinder, more loving, more peaceful person a year from now than I am today. That's the journey of awakening. That's the journey of growing in personal consciousness. Mm. There's another aspect to the independence that I want to cover here and that is making sure we understand that one moment is independent of the other moments. That I might have felt bad a few moments ago. I might be feeling bad right now, but that moment, this moment, is independent of future moments. That I can step back away from that experience that I just had and experience life in a much different way, within the next few seconds, within the next few minutes or seconds. We can always shift our vibration. Sometimes it takes us just a few seconds. Sometimes it takes a few minutes. You know, sometimes if we're really caught up in the grips of some nasty thoughts, it might take us an hour or two, but we will always return to a more blessed state. You know, and I really love that independence of the moment. When I find that I've been triggered, when I have that little buzz about, oh man, I can't believe that person. Oh, that pissed me off. That guy cut me off. You know, I can't believe this news, you know, this channel that I'm watching and this guy and what they're saying, or whatever bugs me, bothers me, triggers my fear in some way. You know, I pretty much immediately these days remember that, wait a minute, well, I felt that, but 5 seconds from now is independent from 5 seconds ago. That I can make this moment independent of all the other moments in my life. Do you see those two different ways of being? One way is we're independent of the stuff that's happening externally and internally. And another way, we are independent and free to live life the way that we want to in this next moment.
Yeah, one is more time oriented. The other one is kind of internal, external.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. So I'm a big fan of freedom and independence, especially that independence that we all have to make great choices, you know, to transform ourselves, to form new habits, to change our limiting beliefs, to let go of our fears and our desires and our attachments and our addictions, you know, and transform ourselves to be a person of greater love and light, to, you know, enjoy life with greater health and greater happiness. So
Dude,
here's personal
freedom. Good reminder to just, it's always good to be reminded of our inner power, you know, our inner potential.
Yeah. Yeah. Every day, do something, meditate, pray, you know, eat well, you know, do something empowering. You know, simple things like we get up in the morning and we make our bed, and it gives us a sense of personal power and accomplishment from the very beginning. You know, we get up in the morning, we do a little chore, we do the dishes, we carry out the trash, we tidy up, we make the bed. You know, it gives us a subconscious feeling and mindset of personal empowerment from the very beginning. And let that carry on throughout the day with the choices that we make and being independent of others and, you know, choosing to focus on what we want to focus on and understanding that, you know, we are people in this evolutionary journey and that we are making progress on that journey and that we have a lot to offer other people regardless of where we are in our journey.
I love it. I love it.
Any other thoughts on personal freedom and independence?
I think I'm good. I'm curious about how you celebrated July 4th.
Oh, me personally?
Yeah.
Well, you know, I cooked out. I fired up the grill. We made a few hamburgers and brats, bought some potato salad, you know, had a really good dinner, bought some ice cream, you know, and I find that when you eat a couple of brats and with sauerkraut and baked beans and corn and potato chips and ice cream, that you gain a couple of pounds.
I was just wondering about that. Like if you have a piece of pizza and you go up 1 pound. I
know. I find it's one pound per piece of pizza and 1 pound per brat. So that's just the way it is. But I do enjoy my brat and sauerkrauts, you know, a couple of times a year, maybe 2 or 3 times a year. That's for sure. So for those of you who are listening to this little Zoomcast, as I like to call them, thanks for listening in. Thanks for watching the recording. We really do appreciate it. Jared and I have this little company called ProStar Performance. We provide emotional intelligence training, company culture development, business ethics training, personal coaching, business coaching to people, you know, nationwide, face-to-face here in the Bay Area of California and otherwise, you know, on video calls. We'd love to work with you to help you step into greater personal freedom and greater independence, to help you become the person that you want to be using the tools and techniques that we have developed over time. So give us a call, come see us. We'd love to help you. We believe in you. You know, we believe in the greatness, in the awesomeness of every person out there, and we believe that sometimes it takes a little helping hand to remind us and help us discover that person. So,
amen.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Cool. I'm going to stop.
See us. Are we done?
Yeah, we're done.
All right. Blessings to you and everybody. See you soon. Bye-bye.